Have you ever walked into a room and felt it shift? Not because you were loud, not because you demanded anything, but because your very presence made others uneasy. Maybe you were calm, quiet, self-contained. But instead of being welcomed, you were met with agitation, sarcasm, subtle jabs. Or worse, they tried to provoke you to get a rise out of you, to shake you from your stillness. You didn't do anything. You didn't start a conflict. But somehow, your peace was the problem. Why? Because peace reveals. It doesn't entertain, it doesn't distract, and it doesn't comply. Peace stands still. And that stillness, it's a mirror. A mirror most people aren't ready to face. Because when you no longer participate in the chaos, you force others to confront their own. When you stop reacting, they can no longer avoid what's inside of them. Your calm doesn't soothe them, it exposes them. And exposure feels like threat to an unintegrated ego. Carl Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But not everyone wants to understand themselves. Some people prefer the illusion, the drama, the noise. Because in that noise, they don't have to listen to the ache underneath, your peace. It turns the volume down, and in the silence, the truth echoes. So let's go deeper. Why does your regulation threaten their dysregulation? Because it disrupts a system where energy is constantly exchanged, not equally, but manipulatively. In many relationships, especially those built on unconscious patterns, one person becomes the container for another's chaos. You might know this role: the fixer, the empath, the listener, the one who absorbs. You've played it well. You've learned to remain calm while others explode. You've learned to de-escalate while others blame. But at what cost? Carl Jung's concept of individuation teaches that psychological growth requires becoming whole, embracing both light and shadow. But when you're trapped in roles, especially the role of the peacemaker, you sacrifice that wholeness. You abandon your boundaries for harmony. You betray your inner truth for outer calm. And in doing so, you leak your energy into a system that only functions if you stay small. But the moment you reclaim that energy by saying no, by not reacting, by not participating in the drama, the system panics. Because now you're unpredictable. You're not emotionally available in the same way. You don't jump when they pull. You don't leak when they push. And that means they have to meet themselves. And for many, that's terrifying. So, what do? They accuse. You've changed. You're cold. You don't care. But what they really mean is, you're no longer available for my unprocessed emotion. Your peace interrupts their cycle. And that's powerful. But here's the catch: you'll be tempted to explain, to reassure, to overcompensate. Because peace, when first embodied, feels foreign, especially if you've been conditioned to earn your safety by fixing, pleasing, or performing. You'll feel the urge to go back, to soften your truth, to meet them halfway on ground you've already outgrown. Don't. Your nervous system might crave the familiar chaos, but your soul is asking for silence. Your psyche is calling you inward. This is not the time to react. This is the time to root. Carl Jung often spoke of the shadow, the disowned parts of ourselves we repress. But what happens when someone else is forced to meet their own shadow in your presence? They resist. They attack. Not because you've harmed them, but because your peace removes the veil. It makes their chaos visible. And the unintegrated ego would rather destroy the mirror than face what's inside it. So they'll try to pull you back into the noise, into the role, into the dance. Because as long as you're playing, they don't have to evolve. But here's the truth. Your job is not to stay small for their comfort. Your job is to stay still for your clarity. You're not here to regulate their chaos. You're here to honor your coherence. That doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you stop leaking. It means you stop overfunctioning in systems that demand your silence. It means you choose solitude over servitude, authenticity over approval, and truth over transaction. Because the ones who cannot tolerate your peace were never connecting with you. They were connecting with your performance. Now let's bring it into real life. You're sitting at dinner with friends. Someone starts gossiping, escalating. You stay quiet, not because you're scared, but because you've outgrown that energy. They look at you. You're so quiet lately. There's tension. But instead of explaining or deflecting, you breathe. You say, I'm not interested in judging people who aren't here. Simple, direct, rooted. You don't raise your voice. You don't justify your values. You anchor them. That's peace in action. That's energy preserved. That's the kind of moment that rewires your nervous system from reactivity to regulation. Here's a practice for integration. Peace rehearsal. Each day visualize a situation where you're usually triggered, maybe a relative who guilt trips you, a colleague who interrupts you, a partner who stonewalls you. Now imagine responding from your center. No defense, no apology, just presence. Let your breath guide the pace. Let your spine guide the tone. Practice not shrinking. Practice not leaking. This isn't fantasy. This is rehearsal. And what you rehearse consistently, your nervous system begins to believe is safe. Over time, this becomes embodiment. And embodiment is not a performance. It's not about being zen for show. It's about knowing that your energy belongs to you, and you choose how, where, and with whom it flows. This is what Jung would call individuation, not perfection, but wholeness. You're not escaping the world. You're participating in it from a different frequency. You're no longer hostage to others' dysregulation. You're no longer available for emotional triangulation. You're no longer auditioning for belonging. You belong to you. And that is sacred. Let's talk about what happens next. When you stop leaking, when you stop performing, when you choose peace consistently, people start leaving. Not everyone, but the ones who depended on your dysregulation to manage their own. And it will hurt. Not because you did something wrong, but because you're grieving the version of you that needed them. The one who tolerated the chaos. The one who thought love meant rescuing. The one who confused connection with codependence. Jung reminded us that growth demands sacrifice, and often that sacrifice is identity. Not your true self, but the false one you wore to survive. So when the people who matched that false self drift away, let them. That's not abandonment. That's alignment. And alignment makes space for relationships that honor your wholeness, not just your usefulness. Here's a tool: energy ledger. At the end of your day, ask, where did I feel drained? Where did I feel alive? Who did I shrink around? Who did I expand with? List them, not to judge, but to observe. Energy doesn't lie, and once you track the leak, you can choose differently tomorrow. Because protecting your peace is not selfish, it's strategic. It's how you build a life that reflects your internal coherence. It's how you stop outsourcing your self-worth. It's how you evolve from survival into sovereignty. No longer a responder to chaos, but a generator of calm. People may call you distant. Let them. People may say you've changed. You have. People may say you're not as fun. You're not, at least not for those who need your collapse to feel big. You're no longer participating in your own depletion. And that's not cruelty. That's clarity. Let's close with this. Peace is not the absence of noise. It's the presence of knowing. Knowing who you are. knowing what you carry, knowing what you no longer choose to absorb, and that knowing. It scares people who survive on confusion, because once you stop participating in their loops, they're left with themselves. And if they're not ready to meet that self, they'll try to pull you back into the role, into the dysfunction, into the noise. But you don't have to go. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Your peace interrupts that fate. Your presence rewrites the pattern. You don't need to argue. You don't need to convince. You don't need to defend. You just need to embody, to stay regulated when others spin, to stay rooted when others reach, to stay real when others retreat into projection. You don't have to be aggressive. You just have to be aligned, because peace is not passive. It's powerful. It's not compliance. It's clarity. It's not isolation. It's sovereignty. So keep showing up, not to prove, not to fix, not to please, but to remain whole in a world that profits from your fragmentation. And if they feel uncomfortable with your calm, let them. You're not here to soothe the noise. You're here to be the signal. So take a breath, feel your spine, and remember, your peace is not a problem. It's a boundary. It's a choice. It's your superpower. Welcome home. When have you noticed your peace triggering someone else's chaos, and how did you respond?